I'm Rob.
I'm John.
And this is the Mint One Podcast,
where we talk all things NFTs and the rise of blockchain gaming.
The creator economy was central to Web2, but where does blockchain fit into the creator economy going forward?
Web3 will only accentuate the creator economy. Let's dive into it.
Okay, so that was a rough start. For the first time in, 14 months? Yeah, 14 months of recording. We started the podcast without recording. And we got, how far did we get in? About 10, 15 minutes?
I want to say about 10 minutes in.
Yeah. Of great podcast material with, no recording. So, that's a mistake we've made now and shan't make again.
But now we're going to have to remember what we said for the last 10 minutes, which I think we can... I mean, I can remember a few bits and pieces.
I can remember.
I think the basis of this podcast is going to revolve around the creator economy. It was a topic that you suggested we discuss this episode, so do you want to go through why?
Sure. So I've been thinking a lot about the creator economy and how it is improved by blockchain and Web3. And I don't think it's something it's discussed very vaguely. This is weird how different direction this podcast has gone immediately, despite the fact we only recorded it 10 minutes ago. Anyway, everything I read on the creator economy that mentions blockchain is very vague. They don't really mention why a Web2 creator economy isn't great. Like, it is good. I mean, it's amazing for so many people, and it's afforded people opportunities to create what they love and do what they love. But it has a lot of flaws that aren't really mentioned, and it's never really explained why blockchain is useful. So I wanted to get into it, and then there was the TikTok thing, which bothers me, how little money people make from TikTok. In fact, I'm going to hit you with a stat right now. So I was looking at TikTok versus YouTube, because everyone knows YouTube is a pretty good way of making money. If you can get, even modest views, you can get a little bit of money out of it. Yeah. TikTok. So I haven't checked this number, but it came from a reputable source, so I presume it's accurate or near accurate. There is a TikTok user who's one of the top users on the platform. He gets around 20 million views per week. Okay. Right? So absolutely wild. Really one of the most important people to their platform. He gets, in direct revenue, he gets $30 a day.
That's ridiculous.
How insane is that? 20 million views a week.
That's pretty mad.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. If you did 80 million views a month on YouTube, you would be making incredible bank.
Mega money, yeah.
So this is one of the problems. There's a lot of other problems that we can get into. But before we do that, let's try and get a bit of background on our experience in the creator economy. I don't really know that much about you as a creator before Web3. Obviously, I was introduced to you through NFT Insider and what you were doing with your site.
Sure.
So do you have any background in content creation?
Yeah, so I'm going to wind it back even further than I did in the previous recording.
Yeah, sure.
I think my effective start in the creator economy is, I think, when I was about 12 years old, where I basically taught myself how to use Photoshop, do some basic editing, basic logo creation, and I just started selling my services online. I think this was about the time Fiverr had started, or if it was before Fiverr started. I generally can't remember what platform I used. Probably DeviantArt way back then. But anyway, that kind of got my start, where effectively my services were the thing being traded there. And from there, when I was 16, I started... You can still look it up. It's a brand called Spirit Longboarding, which is a skate lifestyle brand. And I guess what I did then was, in a way, similar to what I'm currently doing now with NFT Insider, where I create a platform. Back then it was a YouTube channel that just creates quality content, brings value, whether it's entertainment or knowledge or whatever it is, to an audience, and then find ways to monetize that, whether brands reach out to me to give me free stuff, and I review it, or I don't think I ever actually made dollar money, fiat money, through. Although I did start selling some shirts, so I mean I made some money off shirt sales, but companies just gave me products, and because I was 16, I was like, yay, free product! I don't need any money. I just want free stuff. Which, thinking back, very undervalued myself, but oh well. And then, of course, moved into 2015 Cider, which back when it was independent, it was just mine. We did quite a lot of, monetized paid content, sponsorships, highlighted things on other posts. Then I became part of the Pink Umbrella. That's put on hold for a bit, and we're just kind of starting up again now, offering more paid options. So we've got Atomic Ads, where we do banner ads. We're also starting to do more, hey, we'll do a video on your project, or we'll do an article on your project and you give us money kind of thing. But that's kind of my experience, which, I mean, if I wanted to be a LinkedIn influencer, I'd put 12 years experience in the creator economy, but that's, I don't think I can really claim that. Rob, what about you? I mean, you've got a background in photography, so
yes,
I imagine you've got more of a professional take on the creator economy than myself.
I'm not sure about that, to be honest. Okay. It doesn't feel that much more professional than yours. I started with writing my own content for my own sites, which made me very, very little money, but it did make me a little bit. And then that led me to my job as editor of a major photography website. But where I started creating content for money outside of, because I write articles and get money for it, so that is content creation for money. But where I started monetizing my own content for my own platforms was actually because I needed to create more value with my photography. I was working with a lot of watch brands, creating adverts, advertorials, editorials, it just all different uses for photography. But the clients I found the easiest to get were independent watch brands, and they are fantastic to work with, and they're so excited, and you can make a real difference. There's a watch brand, I'm not going to name them, but there was a watch brand that I worked with who really gave me a lot of, probably more credit than I deserve, but they gave me a lot of credit for their going viral and then making money. Now, the watches are actually pretty rubbish, so I don't feel great about that looking back. But I created a lot of work for them on a really regular basis, like every month, and they ended up getting a huge following, and they made a lot of money. And their head of marketing said, "Your images are integral to that," but it wasn't always enough. So I had to do something else, and I started offering these micro brands, the indie brands for watches. I started offering them posts as well. Like I would post about the watch when I'm taking photos and show behind the scenes and my thoughts, and that did really well. And I did this quite early on in Instagram, and I got quite a few followers at that time, and that gave enough value that I could monetize it. But in terms of receiving revenue from platforms, I have never really done that well. I've always earned a little bit, but I've also never really tried. I could have leveraged that watch momentum into something with YouTube, particularly, I think. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go, so I didn't push it enough. And I guess that's really it. So I've done a lot of content creation for money. That's been my chief income for a decade. But I've never gone the route of, YouTube, TikTok, making ad revenue and stuff. Although I have worked with people who make enormous amounts of money, and I've seen how it works and how much money you can make. But, and this is where have we done this episode, or was this the fake episode where we discussed how many YouTubers make money? That was the fake episode, right?
Yes.
The episode didn't get recorded. Okay. Yeah. So one of the problems of the creator economy in Web 2 is that the bulk of people creating content don't make any money, or they don't make enough to even do it full time, even though they're putting a lot of work into what they're doing. And there was a report that came out in August that said 97.5% of YouTubers fail to make $12,140 a year, which is the recognized US poverty line. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should get money for their content, because it really should be a meritocracy. If you create good content, you should be paid for it. And if you create bad content, then improve and make more money. But the problem is, it's the money's too weighted towards the 1%ers. Like Mr. Beast made $54 million from ad revenue allegedly in just from YouTube in 2022. And I mean, that's insane, particularly compared to TikTok, which would be significantly lower. So we need to. I feel like we need to spread that out a little bit more.
Well, do you think that comes to odds with your thought that it should be a meritocracy?
Yes and no. So at the moment, it's too difficult for the smaller content creators to monetize their work. So the only way you can really do it on YouTube, directly from YouTube, is the ad revenue, which is fine, but it isn't enough. And most content creators, even the good ones, even really, I can tell you from photography, there are small YouTubers with a few thousand subscribers creating fantastic content in both value of the content that's in it, production value, regularity of content. They're sharing it on the right platforms, they're tagging it, they're doing all these things, and they can't make enough money to live. So they then have to get sponsors and affiliate links and Patreons, and then they have to monetize their fan base in various other ways. And I'd like to see that improved. Yeah. So I see what you're saying. It does sound as if, because I'm not saying Mr. Beast doesn't deserve to make crazy money, because he's number one, and he's number one in a very competitive field. Anyone that does that deserves crazy money. It's not that I want Mr. Beast to earn less necessarily. It's that we can't have only 2.5% of YouTubers making above the poverty line. That doesn't seem like a well thought out distribution. But this is only one problem in the creator economy. The creator economy is complex and has a lot of problems with privacy and data and stuff that we'll get onto.
Well, I guess the first thing that jumps to mind with that facet of the creator economy, in particular relating to Web3, is that if you look in, traditional YouTube land, let's say, YouTube's been around for, Christ, it's drawing close to 20 years, which is mental. And in that time, I mean, you'll be hard pressed to find anyone who hasn't at least set up a YouTube channel and tried something, even if it was one terrible video 10 years ago that was 30 seconds long. Everyone's tried it. And by this point, there is so much quality content on YouTube for pretty much any niche, there's all sorts of new, well, I wouldn't say new, but all sorts of very niche communities have found huge audiences, primarily through platforms like YouTube and Twitch. For example, speedrunning, which is something that, I follow quite closely. Outside of niche communities, nobody really cared about it years ago, and now it's this huge thing, and you've got SGDQ and Games Done Quick making millions of dollars for charity every year, and it's cool that those platforms have allowed those niches to grow. But the Web3 creator economy is so new that there's, if anything, a lack of quality content in the space. I think there's a lot of people that think they're making quality content, but they're just following the latest Twitter thread trends, or just jumping into Twitter Spaces and thinking, I'm providing so much value, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but you still have to stand out. And I think that the biggest difference, or the biggest obvious difference between a platform like YouTube and TikTok and then just being a Web3 content creator, is you can just start publishing videos on YouTube, and then you hit a certain subscriber mark and you can monetize your videos, and you start earning money. But you have a central entity that's paying you. If you're a Web3 content creator, you're solely reliant on your audience, for the most part, giving you money to survive. And I've seen, especially lately, an uptick in the number of Twitter-based Web3 influencers, whether they're writing Twitter threads, whether they are jumping into Twitter Spaces, whether they're just publishing video to Twitter, which has become surprisingly popular lately. And so much of it is so similar, and so many of the ways they're trying to monetize their audience are a bit, it's just they wouldn't fly in a regular environment. For example, I know I follow quite a lot of Web3 newsletters. I know of at least 2 influencers that have a tiered newsletter subscription service, where their free tier is, you might as well not subscribe to it. But they have paid tiers that go up to like $500 a year.
Right.
Like for an email once a week, which is madness. We've got a long way to go, and there's certainly new ways to monetize an audience in Web3, but I don't think we've quite hit the nail on the head as to what those are yet.
No, I think part of the problem is that the Web3 content creators, and I'm part of this problem, I'm not saying I'm not, but it's self-referential. It's always about Web3, or it's part of the zeitgeist of Web3. Whereas what I'm looking forward to is blockchain infused content creation, just content across the board. And one of the benefits about this, which I think we've discussed, I don't know which episode we discussed it before, is control. And so let's say you're in that 2.5% of people in the US who make more than the poverty line from YouTube. Let's say you make your full-time wage, you've got family, kids and stuff like that. You're completely at their mercy, at YouTube's mercy. They can demonetize you, and they demonetize people regularly. They could ban your account. They could change the algorithm so you're not, preferred on suggested videos, which most people, we talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago. The suggested videos are creepy good. I mean, you can just cycle. Sometimes I'll just hit F5, like shuffle, just give me something else. So you're very good at knowing what I want. And I think I've told this mini anecdote before, but a friend of mine's a very talented portrait photographer, has done a load of work with celebrities and like A-list celebrities, has done album covers, magazine covers. Like he's done incredibly well in the music industry as a photographer. And he built up a Facebook page when Facebook was still relatively new, and he got to 100,000 fans, and everything he put up would instantly get thousands of likes, comments, interactions, shares. I mean, he was crushing it. Mm-hmm. And then I remember this happening because I was trying to build my page at the time, and I had like a few thousand fans. And then one day I just couldn't get any likes, or like I remember deleting a post and being like, what the hell? And then put it back up and nothing happened again. Mm-hmm. And then I went onto the website I was working for, who has 750,000 fans or something like that. And we were getting 30 likes on a new post, whereas we'd usually get 10,000 likes. And then I spoke to my friend who's a photographer, and he was like, it's dropped off a cliff. I don't know what's going on. And we thought it was a bug, but then weeks passed and it turned out they'd changed the algorithm, and we're still not sure what exactly it was preferring, because some pages still flourished and some pages just died. And that's the beginning, middle and end of this. If he'd been making all his money from a Facebook page, which people have done, mm-hmm. and they change the algorithm and suddenly you're not making any money, you're not getting any views, you're not getting any interactions. It's the digital sharecropping article I wrote, happening again, where you're building your business on someone else's land, and they can take that land back whenever they want, or change your business without you being able to do anything. So that's another flaw of Web2. And also with that is it's a effect of being centralized. So mm-hmm. the platform being centralized means that they can do whatever they want. They have the control. They also have your data, which is, not much you can do about that. And that's been monetized, as we've seen platforms do. And so that's probably the area. I'm tied between that and the revenue opportunities, for what will benefit the creator economy the most. One thing I want to add before we get into the next bit is that I think, so a lot of people that have written on this subject are suggesting that Web3 is creator economy 2.0. And it depends how you interpret that. Some people are saying that it's completely throwing out what we've been doing before, and we've got this new model. I don't think that's true at all. And I'm confident that won't happen. I think blockchain improves the current system, and doesn't replace it. So everything we say going forward, or everything I say going forward, is with that in mind.
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember exactly what year it was, when the adpocalypse happened on YouTube. So many creators realized they had to switch from YouTube being the main source of their payments to, oh God, I need to sort brand deals. I need to get money from other avenues. And we've seen more of that over the past few years. If you're a YouTuber full time, then you live and die by the algorithm.
Yeah.
And so much of your focus has to be, well, what does the algorithm want? Not what does my audience want, or how do I make my videos more engaging. It's what do I need to feed into the algorithm for it to push my content to people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I've said before, I follow Linus Tech Tips. Across his channels, he must be doing 20 million videos a week. 20 million videos.
Wow.
20 million views a week with all of his channels combined. And he said on his podcast recently, for the first time in the history of that business, his merch sales have provided higher kind of gross revenue than ad income for the first time.
Really?
So I mean, I don't know what it's like for Mr. Beast or similarly sized YouTubers, but I'd imagine that's why you see so many influencers and YouTubers and TikTokers, etc., go into merch or go into brand deals or whatever it is, because the advertising side of these centralized Web2 platforms is no longer enough to sustain a creator's living. Yeah. So, and without those central entities in Web3 at all, really, I mean, of course you get YouTubers that cover Web3 stuff or NFT projects, but there's no Web3 native platform, like centralized platform for this. I think the majority of influencers are on Twitter still. We're seeing intriguing new ways to try and monetize. And some people are doing very well out of it. I referenced earlier someone who's selling newsletter tiers for $500 US. I don't think he's ever revealed exactly how much he's making, but he said before he's got several hundred paying subscribers to his newsletter on top of all the free subscribers as well. So it's clearly working. But it's I feel it's a different kettle of fish for people like you and I who have a media side, because we're kind of straddling that line between Web 2 and Web 3 in a sense, as in having a website and publishing articles is, I guess, a very Web 2 way of going about things. You know, you have a centralized website that you consume content on. And we also, of course, we both publish videos to YouTube. We have both used Twitch. I mean, I did in the past. But I guess that brings me on to an interesting point, is that we're talking about the creator economy in Web 3, but what exactly do you view Web 3 content creation as being? Is that just people on Twitter? Is that what we're doing? Is that like what would you say define that as?
It's very difficult to define right now, because I think a lot of it will stay the same. I think you'll still be creating videos. I think we'll be creating written articles, podcasts. I think that side of content creation isn't going to necessarily evolve. I think one area that might evolve is how we consume that content. We don't know how the metaverse is going to pan out. I'm not going to pretend I can, but there's a lot of people that think that you'll be inside the internet rather than just looking at 2D screen. So you'll be watching videos within the metaverse and so on. So I think content creation is going to be, it can be anything. And also I think the lines between gaming and general content will blur massively.
100%.
So that's an interesting area. I think that's one of my favorite things, and I've written about this quite a lot, about the content creator economy in gaming is rubbish right now. And Web3, it can be really strong. I don't have the stats. I'm sure I said it on a recent podcast about Roblox and their where people create stuff and they sell things in the shop, and the money these people are making, it's offensive. It's actually offensive that they're putting thousands of hours into creating something unreal, like just absolutely incredible work, and they put it up for sale. And the only person that's really benefited is Roblox and the other players who get to enjoy it. That's not fair. And I want to see that change. And I think that'll improve gaming when it does.
Yeah, I think there's some examples of Web2 games that do have let's call it a decentralized player economy. It's not quite decentralized, but I'm thinking about more like asset stores and things like that, where pretty much anybody can upload anything. And a creator who's making a game or whatever it may be, who comes across it might think, oh, that's good. I think that is worth $20. I shall pay $20 for this. And we've seen games like CSGO, for example, where Valve reach out to people in the community and ask them to, hey, submit skins. If we like it, we'll partner with you. We'll give you a particular percentage of all sales of your skin, which is a nice way of going about it, but it's still being done through a centralized entity. There's an interesting example of this. As you know, I've played a decent amount of Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO, and one of the biggest creator economies in that game is getting your house designed for you. So
Really?
Rather than spending, and this takes a long time, you're talking 50 to 100 hours to get a very nice house designed. Rather than spending that time yourself, you pay someone, whether it's in in-game currency or as via PayPal or something, an amount of money, and they'll do that your house for you. So, and I know people that make their living through just offering that. Yeah, which is crazy. But hopefully what Web3 will allow for is just kind of an expansion more along the lines of that asset store example, where I guess who is popular and who isn't is decided by the open market. You know, for those of you that follow CSGO, you'll know full well there's so many amazing skin creators in the community. You know, if you go on the CSGO subreddit, every other day you'll see someone say, hey, here's a new skin for the AWP or the AK-47 that I've designed, and you're like, that is amazing. But it's solely Valve that decide what skins do or do not go in the game. And hopefully, with metaverses, we can open that box a little. You know, it'll be more like the asset store example, like I said. And then it will be a meritocracy, like we referenced earlier. Yeah. I think I'm kind of stuck in two minds. I don't think there's anything, like, absolutely horrible about the creator economy we have at the moment. I do agree that if there's loads of people making full-time content, quality full-time content, then they deserve to be able to, you know, sustain themselves accordingly. But as I said, I'm not sure if I said it previously in this podcast or in the fake episode that will never go up because it didn't record. There's a lot of people that think they create good content and their content's bad.
This was the fake episode because I remember I replied to it.
Go on.
I replied to it. So you said there's a lot of people that think they're creating good content but aren't, and I said, and there's also people doing that and getting paid for it, because there's plenty of people that have. But this is, perhaps I didn't do a very good job of explaining my position. Sure. It's not just that it's creating quality content. It's what you said. It's that it has to adhere to what the algorithm wants to show people.
Yeah.
So that's not, it's not that you have to create good work. You have to create good work that fits the distribution platform. And that doesn't seem, I don't like that. I don't think that's a very good way of doing it. Distribution, I think, is an interesting question though. A lot of the things I read about, you know, thought leaders and people in Web3 who, I really hate that, thought leaders term. I worked with someone who, put that as my title for when I worked with them. I was like, I'm so uncomfortable with.
Oh God, you'll hate my new personal website I'm working on.
Is it John Nichols Thought Leader?
Literally, I think one of the first lines is, I'll talk a bit about myself and then a bit about NFT Insider. It's like, oh, we provide thought leadership in the blockchain space.
The thing is, it refers to something that there's no other way of really expressing it.
No, not really.
And I was sending an email this week and they were like, oh, we want to chat to you about working on something where you would be a thought leader in that. And I'm like, I hate that term so much. Anyway, the problem is distribution, and I don't know how that's going to go, because a lot of people are talking about kind of the death of YouTube, which I don't think will happen, but distribution is still an issue. And obviously we could see, I mean, how could we realistically, a lot of people seem to be talking about just creating your own communities and you monetize it through that and people share it. I'm talking sort of video content or written content, and, you know, you could have a video NFT and I think that can work, but people will still want somewhere they can see all content and pick their favorites. Something like DTube, hopefully with a much better name. I think the community thing will still work. It's difficult. I mean, in a way, we kind of did that with the Token Gamer Token. It's just an NFT, and anyone who hold it, we consider a member, and they get into a private part of our Discord, and they get extra entries into our competitions. And we've got all these different ways that it will benefit them. We've given them keys to games. In fact, we even had someone recently say, would your VIPs like to play this game? Which is cool. Like, that's the sort of thing we want to offer. And I was thinking, when you were talking about that $500 newsletter, there probably is a way in which I would pay $500 for a newsletter, but it would have to have so much value in it. I mean, if Warren Buffett charged you $500 to look at his eToro account, not that he's got one, you would say, okay, yeah, absolutely. That seems like money well spent. So if you get enough from it, I can see it as valuable. But Web3 essentially opens up a myriad of doors for creators to get paid for what they do and what they create, and not be at the mercy of the distribution platform, which can throw you out of favor at any point.
I think on that point, that's why, or part of the reason why newsletters, even though the concept of an email newsletter is well over 20 years old now, is still such an effective way of reaching people, because you're not relying on an algorithm. You're not relying on a centralized service. You're literally saying, do you want to hear more from me? If you do, sign up to here, and we'll send you something straight to your inbox on a regular intervals. And, the algorithm can't delete it or hide it from people. Or this is why email is still such a targeted platform for so many people. And this is, I guess, one of the reasons why NFT Insider started doing a newsletter, because we can send you a newsletter every week, and I know it's hitting your inbox. I know it's landing. Whereas I can publish a video, I can publish a tweet, and even if you're followed to me or subscribed, you might not even see it. I might be shadow banned. It might just disappear. And I'm wondering if Web3 will be able to come up with a new platform that allows for the same kind of connectivity that newsletters and emails afford. And we spoke in a previous episode about platforms like Console, and do I have to say DTube? I suppose I do.
Yes, you do.
Where I think the idea of it is having more of that direct connection and foregoing these algorithms that control so much of what we consume nowadays. And there's such an opportunity there, I think. That surely there's got to be more than just email that gives us that connection that both we as content creators crave with our audiences, but also what audiences crave from the people they follow the most often. I mean, I tend to not hit the bell icon when I subscribe to people on YouTube. But the one channel I do hit the bell icon on is Internet Historian. Because he does one video every, 9 months, a year at this point. And I want to know the second it drops. But I can tell you it doesn't work. Like, whenever a video drops, I hear about it about a day later. And I'm like, well, what is the point of this bell icon then? And we need better ways to connect both creators with the audiences, but also connecting audiences with fans of particular creators as well. And I think Web3 holds so many of the solutions to that. There's certainly more to be developed in that space.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that the newsletter is still one of the only ways you can really direct market. And direct marketing's got horrible connotations to it, but it's the only way that you can communicate with your audience without the risk of it being taken away from you. You could lose your audience because they find you suddenly boring or offensive, but that I want that. I don't. At least then it's my error rather than YouTube saying, "Oh, we don't like this." And even if I remember rightly, I don't know if this is still the case, but I reckon it is. The YouTube ad revenue isn't just a plain line of views for money.
No,
it depends on the content. Because it depends on the ad. So the ad goes on certain content, and each ad pays differently. And I know that the financial advice YouTube channels were getting paid an absolute ton in ad revenue.
I bet.
Because they had things probably like eToro or these awful tutorial guides on how you can make $1,000 a day sitting on your ass.
Swear to God, the amount of Grant Cardone ads I get is ridiculous.
I read his book not that long ago. He's kind of annoying, but he is.
His ad is the most annoying ad on YouTube right now. It'd be like, oh, I've got a prediction 2023. Everyone's going to lose their money, but if you buy my course.
Oh yeah, I can't.
I'm like, come on.
I can't stand these. There's a YouTube channel that I'm going to paste to you, so you put it in the show notes for us. Sure. It's a guy who reviews financial advice from TikTokers, except he is a portfolio manager at a leading hedge fund and actually has a background in analysis and is a quant, and he can give you real advice. He doesn't,
interesting,
but he could. And he goes through all these TikTok schemes, like how people make money, and it's always the same thing: drop shipping or print on demand or something terrible. Anyway, so I think there is another area of Web3 content creation which I think could be interesting. So this is the thought leadership section of this podcast, because there isn't much spoken about it. But one thing we could see with if there is a distribution platform I'm not saying it again when it's not getting 4 name checks, it's too weird a name. But say there was a distribution platform for video, you could have the platform could be DAO run, and you could have the users, that is the viewers and the creators, could have a token, and you could receive almost like you would invest in a company. You could get money for investing in a platform that succeeds, and then algorithm changes could go to vote. Or again, I'm guessing a lot of this and just sort of predicting it's one way we could go, but that would also level out the distribution of rewards for content creation and viewing. I know I've got to DTube, I've got to say it. I know they've got a token, and by having the token, you can vote on videos or like videos or upload videos. But there's a lot of people are experimenting with what you can do with blockchain and the platform itself. Yep. So it being decentralized is a brilliant win straight away. No one has control over your data. No one has control over your content, which we discussed in the social media episode 2 episodes ago, which double-edged sword. You do have to draw a line somewhere. Nothing illegal is obvious, but there's still some really questionable stuff that sits in a grey area. But, you know, whatever. Moderation is an issue we can tackle, and you'd have to tackle anyway. However, no one can just take down your video. You can't just be demonetized because people don't like it or, you know, for whatever reason. So the decentralized part is a massive win just as a content creator. It gives you that kind of newsletter calm. Is that a brand new sentence? Newsletter calm. I don't imagine anyone's ever said that before. But it gives you that calm that no one can take it away from you, which is great. But then on top of that, you've got if you have tokens of that platform, you kind of own a part of that platform.
Yeah.
You get a share in its success like you would a company. And so I'm not saying the company name again. Is that why you're sniggering?
No, I was thinking, you sound like you're describing a security, but let's not go into
No, not financial advice. Hashtag not financial advice. No, but that's been part of what decentralized platforms have done, is that you have some of the token, that company's token. So that's another route it can go. And then there was another model. Let me refer to my notes. Yes. Now I really like this. I think this is interesting. So have you heard of Rally?
Cars?
No.
Racing in forests? That kind of rally?
Love that Rally, but no. This is not Colin McRae territory. This is a company. I don't know that much about them, but I found what they're doing to be very interesting. They are enabling creators to launch their own creator coins.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Patreon 2.0, I guess. You can monetize your work and your community and everything you do, but fans can buy into your coin and then they receive benefits from you, as you did, like we did with the members thing, but also, you know, you can do sort of revenue shares with them. People can buy in early and there's benefits to it as well. And then you could do, so this could be NFT or it could be a coin, a literal coin. And again, people can invest in creators like you might a company. So it can open, the thing is, it's so blurry right now, that how this would play out. And that's why I'm always a bit tentative, because when these things start moving, you never know how it'll end up. Like, you wouldn't want, one of the problems I foresee with these video platforms, decentralized video platforms, are if you can upvote a video based on how many tokens you've got, then the people with loads of money are just going to vote their video to the top. Yeah. And that's not working at all. That's worse than we have now.
That sounds like I could draw some similarities with Wax's OIG elections, but let's not make that connection.
Well, yeah, I guess you could.
But I've got so many thoughts based on kind of what you've just said there. The idea of creator coins, it reminded me of the explosion in football club fan tokens we've seen over the last 12 months in particular, where I think the idea behind fan tokens was, you could make meaningful impact on the clubs that you love. And it ended up being, which one of 3 colour schemes should we paint our team bus? Yeah. And what should we rename this particular corporate booth? And it's like, I feel like there could be more done in there. But the idea of a creator coin and what Rally are doing does sound interesting for sure. On the point about DAOs, I just realised that I've kind of, I wouldn't say been involved in a DAO. I mean, there's good examples of DAOs in this space. I think the Doodles DAO is pretty good. But one that at least I have experience of, I'm not sure if you do as well, is old school RuneScape. If you're a subscriber and you go into your nearest bank in old school RuneScape, you'll find a voting booth. And every subscribing player gets 1 vote, and the developers are like, what should we implement next? Should we do this or should we do this? Should we revert the change that we did here or not? Should we add this item or not? And everyone gets 1 vote. And there's a particular threshold. I think it's 60-40 for some things, straight 50-50 on others. And the community as a whole can decide on the direction of the game, which is, I'd never quite thought about it like that before, but that's actually quite interesting. And
a few games have done that, I think. Yeah,
we're seeing a few games go in that direction as well. On the point of centralized video platforms, one of the drawbacks of a platform like YouTube, which has come up quite recently because of a change that YouTube made, is that at some point, and this is why the adpocalypse happened, you've got all these advertisers that are drawn to these new platforms because they think, this is where all the people are collecting nowadays. We want to put ads on them. We want to get in front of these people so we can promote our services. But the more big companies have a say in a centralized platform, the more they want to try and influence that platform because they want their ads in front of content that best represents their brands. Mm-hmm. And YouTube recently did a change, I want to say a week or 2 ago. I listened to it on the WAN show, where basically YouTube were they've gone back and forth on what language is and is not acceptable for a very long time. Right, and they've now gone more reserved. You can say, I'm going to need a bleep so many times in a row, it's going to be pointless to actually say it. Sense, but basically all I'm going to say is, they said, it's a hard no on, hard swearing in the first 30 seconds of a video. If you do any of it, we'll demonetize you immediately. However, there are some words I think it was damn and hell, that they now are those words are fine. You can say them as much as you like. Mm. But, what Linus was saying on the WAD show, which I kind of agree with, is a policy like that, whereas I understand it from the advertiser's point of view. They don't want, let's say, an ad for Tommy Hilfiger seconds before a guy just comes out with a heap of expletives about whatever he's talking about. But it unintentionally influences the content that creators make. Because if a creator now wants the ad revenue that they used to get, they have to shape their videos or their content to advertisers' whims. Yeah. And I think if that is a one-to-one relationship, like a direct relationship, so let's say you're working with a brand and they're like, could you change this word, or could you, do this in a different way? I think that's a little different to a centralized platform saying, nope, we're not allowing these words for anything. We'll just take your money and keep it for ourselves. It's very strange. And again, it's another benefit of what newsletters provide, and hopefully what a Web3 video service might provide in future, or I don't know, a Web3 Twitter or the Discord killer console or whatever it is kind of put more of the power back in the hands of creators in that sense, and so mean that their ability to make money is in their own hands rather than in the hands of a company that at the end of the day doesn't really care about you specifically. Yeah. They care about their bottom line.
So here's an interesting thought that I had off the back of that. One of the ways that Web3 creator economy is sold to people is that it removes the middleman.
Yeah.
Now, I'd argue that there are still reasons you might want a middleman, even if you don't have to have one. And one thing I think you touched on there, which is interesting, is advertising. So advertising, if you think advertising, not you, but if anyone who thinks advertising is going away in Web3 is wildly mistaken. I mean, it's going to revolutionize advertising. If anything, it might even get stronger. Advertisers don't like, if you open your video and you just start screaming C-bombs, Wells Fargo isn't going to be thrilled that their ad was before that. So then you've got YouTube making these rules which seem a little bit arbitrary and we don't like them. But I bet it attracts far more advertisers by doing this.
Yeah.
So do you think advertisers are going to be hesitant to put ads in front? We're still going to need ads. Are they going to be hesitant to put ads in front of Web3 stuff because they don't know what it's going in front of?
I think we're seeing advertisers get more. I mean, back in even 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, advertising for a big company was relatively simple. You have YouTube ads, you have TV ads, you have banner ads, and you have the starts of paying influencers on TikTok or not TikTok, but Instagram to promote your products. And that was about it. Yeah. And nowadays, partly because of that sentiment where we're like, people just hate advertising, they're getting more and more finding more ways to integrate advertising into content. And the example that springs to mind to me for this all the time is wrestling. Right. About 5 years ago, KFC sponsored an episode of WWE's Monday Night Raw. Basically, what they had is they had this 20-minute match, but it was KFC themed, and they had a guy dressed as Colonel Sanders, throwing people around a bit, and it's obviously advertising, but at least they made it fun. Yeah. They put some effort into it. And we're seeing that with, just look at the amount of traditional brands that sponsor esport teams nowadays.
Yeah.
Like BMW sponsored Fnatic. I'm pretty sure Mercedes was sponsoring the entire League of Legends. I can't remember if it was the North American or European one. And we had Louis Vuitton and other luxury brands getting into it. And especially with Web3 projects like Blancos. Oh, which luxury brand was it that partnered with Blancos? I don't remember now, but it was...
Yeah. Is it Gucci?
Perhaps Gucci, yeah. But we're seeing more of these brands be like, okay, people hate ads. Let's just partner with the game and create branded skins or
it's brand
avatars.
Awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
rather than direct. It's just a bit more subtle.
Yeah, and so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I believe. I think we've discussed in a previous episode about how intrusive advertising is going to start getting.
Yes,
I don't think that. Some people think that's very Orwellian and very 1984, but I don't think it has to be that bad. We're seeing startups in Web3 that are like, hey, instead of having a loading screen for games, we could show your players ads instead.
Yeah.
Which, I don't really know what I think about that, but I think Watch Dogs a few years ago was one of the first games where, open world game, there's advertising boards in the game as there would be in a real world space. And you, as a company, could be like, oh, hey, can you show ads for my brand in this game for a few weeks? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I think the creator economy in Web3 will change off the back of what advertisers are prepared to do. If people don't like YouTube ads, actually, as a brand nowadays, why would you pay for YouTube ads? because you've now got YouTube Red, or whatever they call it now, YouTube Premium, where you can just pay to remove them, or they see 5 seconds of your advert and you skip it.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't know about you, but
is it paid on seconds viewed, or is it clicks? It probably isn't just paid up front, right?
No, but I've heard from the WAN show from Linus Tech Tips that even if someone does skip a pre-video ad at the 5 second mark, they still get paid as if someone viewed the entire ad, which is weird. Odd. But yeah, I just think that the nature of advertising is changing, and as the nature of advertising changes, the creator economy will change with it. And Web3 creates all these wonderful new avenues for advertising that creators that want to succeed and want to have, a full-time living in this space will have to move with it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real gradual transition, because people will have to go where the money is. And although, even if the whole blockchain-infused system is better, if they can't get the number of views that would get them the money, then they're just going to stay with what they had to begin with. Obviously, diversifying is important no matter what you're doing, particularly in Web 2, because that is one way of negating the effects of algorithm changes and demonetization. Hopefully people will diversify into Web 3 kind of stuff, and then you might see the shift towards that, rather than I don't think it will just be a wholesale jump ship. But it's definitely interesting. One thing you just reminded me of about YouTube, we can discuss how crazy their rules are, is about 10, 15 years ago, a long time ago, I had a folder of old videos of this computer game, and I thought, I'm just going to put them all on YouTube. Some of them were videos I'd created when I was a teenager, and some of them were other people's stuff. But basically, it was before YouTube was big. So I thought, I'm going to stick them all on YouTube in a playlist. And then people who played that game might watch the old videos. And like I said, some of them were mine, but most of them weren't. Mm-hmm. And I just stuck them on YouTube. I didn't monetize them because most of them weren't mine, and that just didn't seem fair. And about 6 months ago, I got a message to say one of the videos had been taken down, and I had a strike against my account. Okay. I was like, okay, that's strange. And I found the video. There is a frame. It wasn't mine. There's a frame in the middle of this video of a computer game that any age can play. And it's just one frame flashes on the screen as a joke of hardcore pornography. Just flashed on the screen. And I thought, my God, are you really... Surely that's a fully bannable offence. I mean,
it's crazy they only gave you a copyright strike.
They just took it down, and they just gave me a little strike, and like, don't do that again. Please stop putting hardcore porn in your videos for everyone. Crazy. So the rules, the rules do seem pretty arbitrary, but you just reminded me of that. And it was up for a good, probably 8 or 9 years before their software found that. But yeah, you could make far lesser mistakes and have your videos demonetized. And a lot of major channels have been demonetized for reasons that don't seem entirely fair. And that is something we can get around by it being decentralized, although obviously it comes with a lot of problems.
Yeah. Well, I think if I could give any advice to any kind of budding content creators, and probably a bit of advice to ourselves in the meantime, is just follow where the advertisers are going. If there's a new platform, a new Web3 platform, try it. It might not be the next big thing, but there's a chance it might be. And if you're early on a platform that blows up, then you're in a fantastic position. Other than that, other than chasing money and chasing new opportunities in Web3, is create channels or platforms that give you that direct connection to your community. Discord is, in a way, is one of them. Email is possibly the best one, especially for Web3 at the moment, because there isn't really ways to track people, and the days of, selling the data that is through your website are long gone. So yeah, just create a way for you to directly talk to your audience that is completely removed of any central entity. And I mean, we do our newsletters for NFT Insider through MailChimp. I think if I was committing to best practice, I'd probably take the mailing lists off MailChimp entirely and store them on some secure server somewhere that's mine and that I own, because maybe MailChimp could take those mailing lists away from me. Who knows?
Yeah, there's a chance.
But, if you want to make it as a content creator in this space, you need to find ways to curate that direct connection and create valuable content that makes people want to see more of you. And I said earlier that there's a lot of people that think they're good content creators but aren't. And it is more difficult than it sounds, because money purely from advertising is so difficult to obtain nowadays. Like, we're no longer in the days like 2012 YouTube where money was everywhere. You do have to strike a fine line between making engaging content that is entertaining to an audience, but also making content that is appealing to advertisers and that would make advertisers want to work with you. And sometimes those two things are definitely at odds, and some advertisers want far more control than others. But I feel it's about curating your brand and setting standards. And well, I mean, from my point of view, for NFT Insider, I hope at least that we've curated a brand where if we did take advertising, then people would still trust that what we're saying is my actual thoughts, rather than me being like, I've been paid to say this project is fantastic. Yeah. So it's difficult, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And there's no real way to learn any of this other than exploring it and trying things out. So
I think you at the start of that created Web3 platform FOMO with the social media, because if they blow up, you will be a success. Hey,
let's say you were early on TikTok and you were popular back at.
You're 100% right.
Huge.
Yeah, I'm just scared that's a new FOMO that's just been invented. Now everyone's got to be on every platform. I do think with audience, if you had to pick a direction, I think building as big an audience as you can, or as big an engaged audience as you can, is probably the best route, because the advertisers will come. They follow the numbers, and if you've got a big enough share. What I'd like to end on advice for, like you did, the content creators looking at Web3. If you're interested in doing it, you can be kind of one of the pioneers at the moment of how to use blockchain. If I was trying to think of an example of what you could do, and I don't know if anyone's doing this yet, so you could be the first, because I don't think I'll do it. You could create a YouTube channel. Obviously, this is only half Web3. You could have an NFT that people can buy, and they will be like a member's pass, like Token Gamer did. And then you can put up a vote every week of what do you want to see content on, and your members can choose the direction of your videos and the sort of content you create. You could do it with written content, video content, podcast episodes. We could do it with Mint One. Cut this bit. We're going to do it with Mint One. But there's plenty of ways that content creators can use blockchain right now. It will still straddle both worlds, because the infrastructure isn't in place yet for you to do it entirely blockchain based. But there's plenty of ways to do it, and I think it's an exciting time to do it. Because if you can build an audience utilizing blockchain, I mean, and that's what Reddit's done in a way.
Pretty much.
Reddit has used NFTs to improve its creator. It kind of has a creator economy in a way, because you're writing posts, but then you can't really monetize it. But it brings the creators in. I mean, they get a lot of money for interspersing ads in between. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so if you're a creator, I would recommend exploring what you can do in Web3 and how it can augment what you're already doing. And I think that blockchain will improve the creator economy significantly if we allow it to. Yeah. If we bring it in and we allow people to explore outside of the only places you can get money at the moment, which isn't necessarily that difficult, because if 97.5% of people are below the poverty line making YouTube videos, if you could make above the poverty line somewhere else, you're going somewhere else. Yeah. I mean, I don't really think there's much pride in being average on YouTube rather than a big fish in a small pond, you know.
I think if we embrace Web3 tech, there's a lot of potential moving forward for sure. And fingers crossed this year we'll see some of those platforms, Web3 centric platforms, come to the fore in that regard. Just one final point I wanted to add on to what I said, kind of connected to the rise of Twitter influencers. Whatever platform you're building on, if it is not something that you have control over, you need to be trying to funnel that audience to something that you do have control over.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, I mean, we're seeing YouTubers do this where, you know, hey, we have 20 million YouTube subscribers, come buy our merch or come sign up to our newsletter, or just some way to either monetize them or speak to them more directly. And I feel there's a lot of people doing Twitter threads and Twitter posts at the moment that, you know, being in spaces or whatever, that cool, fantastic content. You can't really monetize Twitter. Like, you need to point them elsewhere. So just food for thought, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. That was an interesting chat on the creator economy in Web3. It's still, I'd say, quite Web2 centric, or relying on tools from
very early stages.
The past. Yeah, very early stages. But I think we'll. It's the kind of thing we can revisit in future and see just how much has changed. So,
or if it's changed in the ways we thought it might.
Yeah, I mean, as normal for this podcast, we'll revisit it and figure we were completely wrong.
Yeah, 100%. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it should be good. But anyway, there we go. Episode 55 of the Mint One Podcast. Rob, where can we find you?
You can find me on tokengamer.io for daily blockchain gaming content, at tokengamer news on Twitter. And are you sniggering?
No.
Sounded like you were, but I'm looking at the camera and I can't.
The viewers all know why, but it's okay. It's all right. Continue.
What's happening?
Nothing. You missed something. I did, but it's all right.
Okay. You can find me on tokengamer.io for daily blockchain gaming news, at tokengamer news on Twitter for tweets and various other stuff that people do on Twitter. Download our app, the Token Gamer app, which allows you to look at your Wax NFTs and soon Polygon NFTs. So that's exciting. And what else? I don't know. My train of thought has been thrown by activities to my right. John, where can people find you?
Hopefully anyone that's watching this on YouTube actually goes back to see. But anyway, for NFT Insider, for daily NFT Web3 blockchain news, NFTinsider.io and NFTinsider_IO on Twitter and Instagram. For me personally, it's at HydroPowered, HYDROPWRD on pretty much everything. If you want a direct way to contact me and contact NFT Insider, it's nftinsider.io/newsletter for our weekly newsletter with the latest Web3 alpha and exclusive interviews, giveaways, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I believe that's it.
Okay.
Great. Well, awesome. Thank you, everybody who is watching, listening, whatever platform you're on. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe would be fantastic. Leave a comment. Let us know what you'd like to see next. And if you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, a 5-star podcast review would be fantastic. Not sure what we're talking about next week or if we have a guest or not, but I guess we'll figure that one
We definitely have some guests coming up. And
we do.
We're getting lots of people pitching us lately. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Want to be guests, but we're very very picky.
Yeah, I've had a few lately where it's like, hey, do you want to speak to the CEO of this Web3 brand that's doing something quite dull? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Oh, but they
hopefully they're not listening to
the Warner Brothers.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll be able to bring you some more exciting guests than that. In future episodes. But anyway, there we go. Episode 55 of the Mint One Podcast is in the books. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody, and we hope that you tune in again next week.